I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. It's a beautiful day here in New York City. The sun is shining, the breeze is blowing. It is officially Brat Fall. Andrew Quo, how are you celebrating this momentous time of year?
Brat Fall, it's too much brat, man. It's over. We tried Brat Summer. It only existed on Twitter. I don't know. What do you think? How did you celebrate Brat Summer?
Well, your girl XCX, Charlie XCX, she declared that Brat Summer is over. And that was very shrewd of her because she had two options there. She could have said, it's Brat Summer forever. Like, this is not a seasonal thing. It just keeps rolling.
It's a state of mind.
It's a lifestyle. Like, you can be putting out your Christmas decorations. You can be, placing a star on top of a tree, and yet Brat Summer remains. But shrewdly, it's seasonal. It's over. It's over forever. There will never be another Brat Summer.
Sort of like Angel Reese Nation. You're like, oh, we should be co-rookie of the years now. There should be two Nope. Charlie XCX knows September 1st rolls up. It's Halloween season, man. Skeletons, medium-sized skeletons, huge 15-foot skeletons like the one in Clinton Hill. It's time to get spooky.
Is there a Halloween neighborhood in New York? If you go out to like deep Brooklyn, like the Italian sector, way out there for Christmas,
Filming there are Rocky video. Deep in that Christmas zone.
Right. Yeah, it's basically like Greenpoint, but even deeper, like the furthest stretches of Greenpoint, like Gummo meets Greenpoint. But you go out there for Christmas and it's block by block. There's like everything is covered. Is there a Halloween district? Is that same area like Bay Ridge or Bensonhurst, wherever it is, deep out there, South Brooklyn? Are they also doing Halloween?
I should know this because it is the most important time of year, but I can't think of any. Like where I live in kind of like the eastern part of Brooklyn, it's a smattering of houses. Halloween is huge here though, but not like it is like in Kensington. Have you seen the videos in Kensington? Like kind of around the park, south of the park? It's like hordes of people.
So maybe that's the Halloween district?
There should be. There should be a Halloween district that is always spooky throughout the whole year. It's just like, we took a wrong turn and things are getting kind of eerie up in here. We're in the Halloween district.
By September 3rd, we should know where the Halloween district is. We are now bearing down on Halloween full steam. Maybe this is the year that I plan my costume more than 45 minutes before I have to go out.
When's the last time you wore a costume?
Really depends on what we call a costume. I remember going to a party a couple years ago and like, it's a cat themed party. And I was
you went to a cat mom party? I like the respect. Dogs are the enemy.
And I'm like, okay, a girl was like, here's some makeup and put some on your nose and I'll draw whiskers. I don't think that really counts as a costume.
I did that with my toddler last year, but I also put him in a black hoodie and put ears on him. So that it kind of worked. I went to school to make Halloween costumes. Basically, the number one function of art school is to devise Halloween costumes. But it's been a decade since I put one on.
What was the best one you've ever made?
A rat with a giant cardboard piece of cheese. So again, gray hoodie, ears, rat whiskers, because I love rats and all rodents. And then I spent all my time making like this piece of cheese out of corrugated cardboard. So it was like 3-dimensional and I carried it everywhere. And I had to DJ like 3 parties that night. But I was like the piece of cheese goes in first. And they're like, what is this thing? It's like, I'm sorry, it has to go behind the booth. And it was like really awkward. That was the best costume.
Well, look, now that we've gotten the important stuff out of the way, I wanted to ask you a little bit about another rat subject, being that we're talking rats. You know, our mayor, the rat czar, has been engaged in a war against the little rodents that scamper around our city streets.
Oh, I know.
And I'm not going to give him credit for this. I'm saying it's part of this combat, this mighty struggle between Eric Adams and
Combat rat. Rest in peace.
between the combat rats. So apparently this is the Parks Department that has put this together. I believe that's my understanding. Because pizza boxes mess up garbage cans structurally, messes with the architecture of how other things are going to go in there. You put one box in there the wrong direction, all of a sudden it's piling up. You got half an empty container. They're starting to put together these squarish containers, these structures that are supposed to be just for pizza boxes. And apparently people thought it was a hoax or a little gimmick, but they are apparently, from my understanding, real. There are actually these little sort of skeletal boxes that you're supposed to stack pizza containers
Yeah, what
in.
shape? Talk to me about them. What shape are they? Are they flat like the earth, or are they like sideways like a bookcase? Do you slide them in or do you lay them in?
You lay them in. I would say it's most equivalent to an old school newspaper box. Like that's the same layout.
Oh, like it's an oven. Like you open it up, you slide the pizza box in.
You know, there's no door, but it's like that's like the way that newspapers would be put into a box, like in a horizontal stack.
Okay, all right.
Or would that be a vertical stack?
You got to tell me, man. If it's flat, they're horizontal, but they make a vertical structure.
Yeah,
right?
that's really the crux of my confusion. But yes, they stack horizontally, vertically.
I applaud our rat czar. That's amazing. So you identify the rat or the rat community hanging out in a certain vicinity close to pizza. You find out where the Halloween sector is, and then the pizza zone, and then you install these. He's in on the take though, so I bet he has it's like Halliburton, but for pizza trash cans. So
and then you build them the rats a little condo where like the rats can pay a bit more and be at the very top of the pizza heap.
And I would assume it would be recycling, because you could throw other stuff, flat stuff out as well, right? Like what if you had like a digital backboard that made no sense? Can you just like throw it away in the pizza trash?
I don't see why you couldn't. What's your take on this digital backboard that has been installed in, I want to say it's Tompkins, right?
It's Tompkins. I'm wary of getting into basketball this early in the pod. I mean, we're going to have to...
All right, let's save it. We can talk tech. We can talk basketball later. That's just a hint. Just a soupçon of the kind of content that you're going to get in an hour and a half.
I do want to make the perfect pod, but
I don't think
let's go. The conversation is about surveillance, right? It's not about field goal percentage. It's not about the Moses Malone rebounds. It's about a surveillance state peeping everybody in the TF, because Tompkins is still kind of rough. It's spooky.
So you're saying we're going into this topic?
Yeah.
It'd be damned the fact that there's no basketball on TV, really, other than the WNBA. There's no Olympics. You're ready to cut loose on one of our basketball topics 8 minutes into the show.
This is not about basketball. It's about the skateboard.
Okay, so we'll also talk about it during basketball. This is the surveillance.
Oh,
section.
Your take was about basketball with this thing?
No, not really. Well, sort of. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Whatever. Okay, so surveillance backboards. The name of the brand is like HUUPE or something along those lines, like hoop, but in its most Stasi-fied version. It's not yassified, it's Stasified.
Give me the Shark Tank pitch for this.
Okay, it's like having the Stasi, the East German secret police, watching your every brick. And we'll call it hoop.
And then I'm Mark Cuban or Mr. Wonderful or my favorite Lori, and I'm gonna ask who's this for?
Oh, well, it's for people who are shooting around and want to know what their field goal percentage is, and for the police who want to watch the park and bust weed dealers.
So do you have a contract with the police? How are we gonna make money on this?
Yes, we are working hand in hand with law enforcement.
I mean, the whole reaction of this thing on Twitter was like, police are watching us. I'm like, I don't know. They're already like, why would they need a scarecrow in Tompkins, which is kind of out in the open? This I have a friend who is so alarmed of surveillance. Like they won't text; they'll only use WhatsApp, and then they move to a different app. Their WhatsApp was bought,
Signal boys?
and all we talk about is like where to have dinner. But it's the principle of it. It's just like I just don't want thinking that someone is eavesdropping in on me. It makes me uncomfortable, and I'm just like, there's always been a level of surveillance. If you're on the grid, like my friend who's like, I'm off the grid. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, I don't have a Facebook account. I'm like, you're definitely on the grid. You have 4 credit cards. But are do we freak out about surveillance too much? Is this like a catch-all thing, just being like either they're racist, Hitler, or surveilling people?
Well, if we're talking about the backboard, I would suggest that there are so many cameras around that vicinity that having one more that's trained on the lane is probably not going to make the difference. Like, thank God that criminal that we had not identified spent 3 seconds in the key. We were able to totally nail him on that charge.
Cops are
No pun
watching
intended.
people sell heroin and do heroin. They're like, it's not worth going out there.
I remember, like, maybe that's a long time ago. There were these like surveillance tours in the Lower East Side. I don't know if you remember these things. You know, it was like a like citizens' rights group, and they'd be like, okay, meet us up, and we're going to walk on this 10-minute tour, and we're going to point out all the places that you're being watched. And it would be like, there's 10 spots that there's going to be a camera on you as we're on this walk. Maybe it was more, whatever. But at this point, every single building, every single store, every single ATM, every single
laptop.
doorbell,
Yeah, I don't know.
right? At this
Every
point,
single browser.
it's just like the visual surveillance is just omnipresent. And then, you get to, as you said, your digital footprint, which is incredibly hard to avoid. Even if you were going out of your way and only using cash and using, I don't know, anonymous browsers and using, where your stuff gets pinged all over the place so they don't even know where it's coming from. You could do all that stuff. It's like, end of the day, you're still around. Like, unless you went and moved up to the woods, like your comings and goings you're going on planes. It's really impossible.
Did James Dolan actually end up going through with the technology that can like facially register everyone who steps into the garden?
All right. So my understanding of this is that it's not exactly facial recognition. Although they have facial recognition cameras there, those are only to identify certain people that they have put in there who are not allowed in there on premises. And that was
What'd you do? What'd you do?
that was me, Charles Oakley, for this incident that I got into a few years back. Like, that's Chris Dudley.
I mean, he was getting mad at people who were just saying like fire, sell the team, sell the team. He wanted them out.
Yeah, but this example, the one that made headlines, was because a woman who was involved with a law firm that was suing MSG as the company, or Cablevision, was recognized at Radio City. And they're like, you can't come in, and we just can't have people who are involved in a lawsuit against us or in the law firm involved in a lawsuit against us on one of our properties. It's bad for us. And everyone's like, well, that's really punitive. She just wanted to take her kids to watch the Rockettes. And they're just like, whatever. So the Knicks are looking at seeing who's coming in, but I don't believe they're identifying every person. They also have the technology, which is the cameras, I believe, that can sense metal, that are now replacing metal detectors. So when they just wave you through without checking, it's because that camera, I don't think it's facial recognition, even though it feels like it. It's actually like a metal detector type of thing.
Can they sense hatred? I mean,
Yes, they let you right through.
yeah. Back to the backboard thing. This thing is kind of cool. I don't believe in the police state being interested in this at all. If you were an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, I have this backboard that has a camera, you guys want in? They're like, no. Things don't really happen on basketball courts. And if they do, like, we don't care. And the technology as a standalone thing is kind of cool. Maybe we are talking too much hoops, but like, shouldn't the NBA buy this and have like stats as maybe the WNBA has Angel Reese stats going up in real time as she rebounds? Like, she broke the record, ding, 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 like a slot machine.
I mean, sure. The funny thing is, this technology that they're using is not new at all. There's this app that was called Home Court. I used it like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that, 5 at least. This is not right, within a couple of years. This goes back. And honestly, it was kind of better than this, but it's the same exact thing. You'd set up your phone with the app open. You could use a tripod or just put it against a wall or a bag or whatever. And you aim it at the court, and then it tells you to go shoot a free throw. So you walk over there, you shoot a free throw, and then that sort of calibrates it. And then ideally it's for one person shooting around. And you just shoot around and take threes and whatever, and then you go back to it, and it gives you your shot chart. It's like, oh, you made 27 of 60 shots from this area. You made X amount of shots from this area. And it breaks it down by, in the lane, on the wing, 3-pointers, layups. So like, this exact technology has been there for a long time, and it doesn't even require the backboard itself to really even register anything. It's just digital. Like, it's an optical technology. It's not like those old school ones where you'd actually have to see the ball go through the net or whatever.
Obviously, this is sports washing, right? Like, people, as soon as they hear about stuff like this, they're like, what is the ulterior motive, right? Because we don't really want these things. There's no demand for these things. And it got me thinking the other day, because like, maybe I'm stuck on this idea of justice and surveillance with this backboard.
You love justice and you love surveillance.
Well,
but you love justice, not surveillance.
I don't care about either. But
you love injustice and not surveillance.
Right. Sure. We were hanging out, all of us, illegally in a parking lot, drinking beers, enjoying the second to last day of Brat Summer. And one of our buddies, unbeknownst to me, is down with the Hells Angels. No, not Guardian Angels. My bad. So a bunch of Guardian Angels rolled up.
All right.
Oh, you weren't here. You weren't here.
I know, but those are very different things.
Well, I'm saying, one of our friends was just like, "Oh, what's up?" And the Guardian Angels was like, "What are you guys doing?" It's like, "Oh, you were chilling out, just having." You were 2 hours away that night, but I was thinking, I was just like, what is the function of the Guardian Angels in 2024? Because obviously they're not going to be like, "Hey, you guys should not be like drinking out here." It's like, you're going to get busted. Like, go in there, like, don't get a ticket tonight.
But their function has always been the same, right? It's like Curtis Sliwa and the gang riding around in their berets, hanging out on the subway, protecting the citizenry, but they don't seem to actually engage and like fight people. I think they're more just sort of like
a fight. No, I've seen them fight on the subway.
I mean, but they're more just like a community watch, right? That's like the function. They gave them a name. They gave them hats. Where Ice Cube called them like F-bombs and little red hats on one of his albums, which has really been an enduring memory. And it kind of, as offensive as it may be, pops into my head every time someone says Guardian Angels. I'm like,
Well, the original conceit was how dangerous the subways were. And this is the 1980s. So in 2024, it's different. But in the 1980s, there were many graffiti artists hanging out in the subways, but like, there was a sense of danger that they kind of stepped in and provided a little bit of security. Allegedly, they're just another gang. Um, but I was thinking about that in relationship to the Tompkins Square Park, like threat of surveillance, and I'm like, if the backboard was actually a psyop, don't we want that? Like, if you were selling drugs or doing illegal stuff, don't do it in front of this backboard. If you were not doing illegal stuff and selling drugs, okay, then the basketball court is safe. Like, is that bad?
Well, I mean, I just don't think we want a surveillance state. Like, who gives a shit what people are doing anywhere? I just
But
mean,
to your,
generally
to your
speaking.
point, it's already a surveillance state. Like, it is already a state.
Oh, okay. We're saying that's a given.
Well, we just talked about how it was a given, right? Like,
Right.
it is. There's no need for the guardian angels anymore because like we got cameras everywhere. But to the guardian angels point, they're just like, yeah, but they're gonna watch you do bad stuff and be in danger and get mugged, whatever, and they won't do anything because it's not worth it. They're looking for like other things.
Honestly, I don't really even know what the guardian angels do besides waltz around. But were they wearing outfits?
Full, obviously, like red, all red, everything.
So this guardian angels blood crew comes rolling up. You're out there with a brew dog, and were they like, "Hey, let's clear this out. Let's get you off the street."
No, they were like, hey, nice to meet everyone. All right, have a good night, XX. They were chill.
So who were they guarding in this situation?
Nobody. They were I mean, maybe they were fulfilling their duty. Maybe in their point of view, justice was happening and there was nothing for them to do. Right? They might have, I don't know what their politics are, but they might be like, hey, public space is important. You guys can enjoy your public space. You're not doing anything wrong. Have a good night.
Wait, you're talking about the Hell's Angels?
No. Guardian angels.
No, I know. I like someone joining the Guardian Angels and keep and just being wrong and thinking they've joined the Hell's Angels, or vice versa is funny too.
I mean, I used to have, I think I told this story before, our band used to have a practice space across from the Hells Angels headquarters in the East Village. They were extremely nice to us, but bad stuff happened there for sure.
And then every time they'd come by, you'd be like, "Oh, guys, the Guardian Angels are here."
I mean, there was
we're the Hell's Angels. Hell's Angels. Oh, right.
there's angels up, down, and below. Like New York City, is there a third angel crew that is maybe in the middle of the heaven and hell?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Is it the Knicks just like wandering aimlessly through the NBA?
I mean, the Knicks are kind of that. I literally can't stop music from playing in my home. It's really annoying.
Well, what is it? Now you have to tell us. Is it Dochi?
It might have been Dochi.
Well,
I've been trying to stay up on Dochi. It was. Well, I heard it. It was like an Alice Smith song on a mixtape or like on a playlist from years ago. I don't know why it was playing, but let's talk Dochi. So Dochi, the rapper du jour, a rapper / singer, has like the real theater kid thing locked down. From, I want to say Florida, I believe, signed to Capitol Records a couple of years back, down with Top Dog, and the immediate reaction when you hear her is, this is Kendricky. This is, the voices shifting, the timbre of the voice shifting, the cadence going from super fast to super slow, singing. And there is a level of craftsmanship on what she does that is extremely high and therefore also a little bit cringe, if that makes sense. It's just so well done. And there's so much effort that makes you wonder, why are you trying so hard?
In the Jadakiss way. Well, I had to go to their Wikipedia, and it was like comparisons to the artists you mentioned, Biggie Smalls, Missy, because of the artistry of it. I was waiting for a Lin-Manuel Miranda kind of section to come up. Like this feels like off Broadway, Broadway, um, high theater skill, technical performer, right? So immediately my alarm bells go off, and I'm just like, my authenticity Gen X alarm bells. Because is she an industry plant? Is she Megan Trainor of this world?
Mm,
Megan Trainor, yeah.
well, this concept of industry plants, we've talked about this a lot, and it's always a fascinating
I
idea.
love it.
Like, is someone who is very talented, came up through their own means, got signed, and then cultivated as an artist into being a superstar in waiting to be presented as the next big thing. Is that an industry plant or how the musical industry is supposed to work?
I mean, there have been industry plants, right? Like artists that are forced upon us, mentioned many, many times. People claim this about basketball, claim this about uh, actors. I believe that woman in This Is 40 was offered so many roles and we just didn't like them that much. I forgot her name, but there are cases where the industry is like, we can make a lot of money off of this artist. Let's do that. And then we kind of decide.
Right. I feel like someone using the game for an example, the rapper, a guy who had a legit backstory, was involved
Katherine
in gang
Heigl.
stuff,
Yeah.
got he got shot. He had the rich lore that you would want from like a gangster
He got his
rapper.
butterfly tattoo covered up in an LA Dodgers logo.
Exactly. His brother, I think, was big time gang dude, etc. He was very authentic in that
I was a
way.
fan. I liked him.
Had a good voice, but he was sort of an industry plant in that they designed him to be the next big West Coast star. And it was like Dr. Dre was behind it, and they associated him with 50 Cent and the hottest crew, like which was G Unit out of the East Coast. And it doesn't mean that you're like a fraud. It just meant that he was positioned in a certain way by an industry that thought that this calculus makes sense. Doechii is clearly really talented. And someone looked at this and said, what if we found an Azalea Banks that was moldable? One that was able to
We can tame this one.
right, one that is able to, be created as a successful artist within the structure of the music industry versus a lifelong wild card.
It makes me think of Marky Mark, right? Like insane person, industry created fully, right from the jump, like the Funky Bunch, Gap ads.
He never would have blinded that Vietnamese man if not for the music industry.
Well, I'm saying we call Azalea Banks uncontrollable. She just has many opinions. She probably is on the spectrum in like a highly functional, intelligent way. 212 was an insane song. If you listen to it now, it's like it's still so deeply of a time, but it's still great. She just fires a lot of takes on social media. Marky Mark is like a felon, right? And ends up being the biggest actor of a decade. He's fading now, but he had a run of hits that maybe grossed him the most money of any living person in Hollywood. But there's always a temptation and always a need for someone as talented as Azalea Banks to be more, to follow instructions better. And that sounds bad, but like that just means like, can you return an email? Can you show up to an event? Like, Lauryn Hill's been mentioned with Doechii, and she is the ultimate talent versus unpredictable kind of contrast.
Yeah, and there are comparisons between Lauryn Hill and Doechii for obvious reasons. Singing, rapping, I think it's one of her, not her mentors, but her idols. I don't know if they have any relationship at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Doechii it's interesting to see someone who is obviously talented, like clearly talented, and probably going to be a star. There's a very good chance this works. You know,
You think
she's
so?
down with Kendrick. I think so. I see people who are the right people for her to get excited, being excited.
Are you talking about social media people
So,
or other
social
artists?
media, social
Because
media.
opening up for
It's the
SZA
same.
is not going to do it.
No, I don't think her trajectory up until now looked like it was going to work necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Their song with Kodak Black was cool, but it's that thing where people who are don't get excited about mainstream rap, even though they respect it or listen to it if it's a big hit, are excited about her. And I remember the same thing with Kendrick, when
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain like cross section of people who are not old school, you know, purists. They still want to like new rap stuff, and they're hearing her and like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I want. And that's a valuable group to have behind you because they aren't pure haters. They want to be contemporary and they want to be excited about, you know, the newest talent coming out, but they want that talent to be someone they can ride for. And I think that's like a key demographic that it feels like she's already got.
My question is, what things matter to her? The evergreen question of what does she care about? Kendrick, his content makes him a Grammy award winning artist, right? The Grammy committee is just like gonna give it to him. Do does Dochi rap about bad things or good things?
I've listened to her mixtape a couple times. It's really diverse in the way that
Mm-hmm.
she's talking about. There's like battle rap stuff. There's one song that kind of grinds my gears. That's like about like hip hop or something. I'm like, come on. But I get why people would be into that as like, yes, she's talking about like real hip hop. What's real hip hop? I'm like, no, don't do it. But yeah, she can
Dochi
clearly
chewing
rap her
bacon.
ass off.
Yeah.
She can sing. It's like a song called Beverly Hills, and it's like, oh, this is like she can do the neo soul style Lauren stuff with singing and hooks. Again, I think she's really talented. I would sort of be shocked if it didn't work.
Is talent a good thing or a bad thing? Like, if you can paint photorealistic paintings in undergrad, is that good or bad?
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, 100%. That it's more like witnessing the phenomenon, and the talent is so obvious. She's really talented. I don't necessarily think talent makes me like a rapper that much more. It's because it's so inherently about the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but I do think she can make songs. Again, it's thoughtful, it's well constructed. But I mean, I don't know. I think RX Pappy has like 4 songs on his new mixtape that I listen to more because it's just more of a vibe.
I guess he's a good example of my real question, or a good answer to my real question. Are we looking for talent musically in our musicians? Or are we looking for a more broad talent? Like, I think of ASAP Rocky, right? He's never been the best rapper. His songs have never been that good. When you think about him, you don't think it's like, oh, what are your top 10 ASAP songs? You're just like, oh, this guy's a businessman. He's cool. He's married to the most interesting artist of a generation. His visuals are cool. He's like into fashion. Famous person. It's like, if you like ASAP Rocky so much, name 5 of his best songs. I can't do it because he doesn't really have songs, and he's not that good of a rapper. RX Poppy and Dochi are incredible rappers, but do they need to not be?
Well, let's think about, for me, Pap as a Pap aficionado, is that nothing he does feels like it takes any time at all because he's just punching in. So his talent feels more spontaneous in a way. It feels unproduced. There isn't really that much of a difference when I've seen him freestyling and just high as shit in
Mm-hmm.
front of a live mic than there is on his written material.
But maybe
Like,
this, yeah.
written, because he doesn't write anything. He just sits there and punches in line after line after line, which is essentially freestyling. He's just doing it slower. You could also say it was writing, which would be valid. But then you hear Dochi and it's like, oh, this is like intricate. Like you've recorded this over and over until every syllable is in its right spot. And I'm thinking of these sort of like this Venn diagram where you have like, is it cool? Is it try hard? Is it talented? And like,
I mean, this is like
and hers is hitting right in that middle where you're like, this is a little try hard, but she's really talented and it's good.
and there's a small window, right? Because this is maybe year 4 of talking about the RX crew, and it could maybe benefit them to like do a cool video, do a cool thing that brings attention to their music. Not just being like, I got more bars. I got even more bars. I have even more bars.
Yeah, they're not doing any of that.
They're lost,
Like
right?
like here's more bars.
Yeah. It's just like, yo, we played Baby's All Right last time. In next year, when we come back, we'll blow it up even more. I'm like, cool. Like that sounds good. That's a cool artistic life. Dochi seems like in a slot where there's not only things at stake, but there's more possibilities. The ceiling is higher, right? Not in a year, but right now. And
Oh
they're,
yeah,
they're
100%.
and they need to Dochi needs to, maybe in my humble opinion, bring less attention to her technical skills and maybe be a kind of Charlie XCX artist in 2024 where like Charlie's album was fine, but the overall package was very easy usable as a fan.
I mean, that Charlie XCX rollout is going to be studied by every PR
And
company,
you
every
can't
marketing
duplicate it.
company forever. That'll be like the mood board. Okay, so in the same way they use that like slime green, the brat green, we're doing it but with orange.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be crazy because she won Powerball, but there can only be one winner of Powerball. So it kind of resets. It's like, I have an idea. Next time, let's win Powerball. It's like, you got to win a different way.
So we're going to have Byline and Goots do a poetry reading at Time Again Cafe. And then after it's over, they're going to shout, put on the new Dochi album. And then they're going to put it on and all the girls downtown are going to dance for like 45 minutes to this album. Okay, so let's make sure we get that in the marketing deck.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Beck came up, it was just like, let's like sculpt a story where you're homeless and then we kind of find you play on a 4-track, you're a loser, then you do like underground albums that no one cares about except critics, and then we put you on a platform where you eventually win a Grammy. Like, let's do that thing. It's like, oh, that's the Beck thing. I'm not sure.
Okay, ASAP Rocky. We're going to follow that model. Like that makes sense to us. We're going to have a really cool crew of kind of like uptown guys, but they all worked at sneaker boutiques and really knew downtown culture and meme culture and were rap nerds. And we're going to make a kind of fusion of like down south Memphis meets, screwed up culture with like drinking lean, but they're going to come from Harlem. They're going to shoot a video with an incredibly handsome guy who's going to marry Rihanna. So let's do that rollout. That'll work.
Who's the Rihanna of this generation? I have
Charlie XCX. What?
Yeah, who's gonna marry that? Right. I mean, I have a whole wish that I think is true, but it probably isn't. That every crew and every generation of artists and downtown people and social people online are all duplicates of each other. So, like, you will have your ASAP, you will have your Charlie, you will have your Rihanna, and people just like slot into these compartments that are like a big Ouija board of a scene. And I don't know. When Dochi comes out, I'm just like, it is hard for me to think and enjoy this music without acknowledging what it reminds me of, which is good and bad. It's impossible to create new things. That's why I don't think AI is going to really work. And there was a New Yorker article about it this week, because artistry involves a lot of bitchiness and grumpiness and things that are kind of not predictable in an algorithm. And when I hear something like Dochi, on the same week you hear a Mace freestyle, and you're just like, the creative lines are not overlapping, but they're all kind of straight, right?
I didn't hear the Murder Mason Betha freestyle.
It's beautiful. You should play it. It is deeply from 1997, but it's beautiful.
I mean, I'm glad that it is. That's what it should be from. Also, this is way too rap nerdy. But if you look at like Cameron Mace, and as you said, their cadence, it reminds you of their glory area. Is it just because of that's who they are? Like if a teenager came out and rapped like Cameron, we might say that he sounds like Cam, but would we say that's 2003 rapping? If someone came out and rapped like Mace, would we say, wow, that's 1997 right there. Boom. 1998 tops. Is it just who they are?
My favorite is our buddy Nick Sylvester, who was writing for the Village Voice, interviewed the Game once, falsely, never interviewed the Game, and he asked him what his Game face looked like, and he was like, "It's just my face," and it got published, and it got him fired. He's actually a music maker, not a music reporter, so that was fine. But I don't know, like, is Cameron a product of his generation, or is he the generation? Is he the king of New York, or did we make him the king of New York?
Yeah, good question. I just think there's something about rap that I don't know how much it's evolved in the last 20 years that you could tell from how someone raps just in front of you as a freestyle. Right? Because if you put on Xavier So Based and you're like, you got to kick a little freestyle over a beat, you may not be like, oh, no, this guy is totally like the Future. I just feel like there was probably a cutoff point, like maybe late 90s, where everyone kind of like learned to shoot threes. Mm-hmm. Like, well, everyone can shoot now. So yeah, like how people make their music and the cadences and the tempos and the flow on a song may differ. But if someone just has to rap in front of you, you may have no idea what tier they're on because everyone can shoot threes. Everyone has a left hand.
I love it. It's like painting, right? It's like, I think everyone should be able to create abstract work and figurative work. It's like, well, what era are you from? It's like, we can do kind of all eras. That is the thing with this version of modernity, right? Gosh, it's like, this Caitlin Clark Angel Reese debate makes me think of when Zoomers found out about like Grandmaster Flash and the original generation of rappers, and they're like, what the fuck is this? This is not how we envision the gods of this world to be. Like, this is unlistenable. And their mockery of it was so unnerving because it was so on point. It's like, let me just rap like Grandmaster Flash. And I'm like, this is like disrespectful in a way that is a tradition, but like makes me uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I'm laughing because I almost texted you too. Like maybe a week or two ago, I was walking down Wythe Avenue, and that's where you have, the Crocodile, you got the Wythe Hotel. There's a bunch of hotels over there, and that's like I think Hell Square 5 maybe.
Oh, and number 5, my favorite.
But it's sort of back up. It had a few years where it had crumbled, but now there's a lot of people over there. There's a big queue of folks that are trying to get into that water tower bar for some reason. I mean, like 100 people.
Oh, right. That's
one of the
been there
hotels.
For a while, right?
Yeah. So I walked by, I'm like, wow, Hell Square 5, back up. We did it. And I was walking by the bowling alley, and I hear some sounds coming out of it. I'm like, what is that?
Oh, like, no, that's going to make me sad.
Jurassic 5.
Nah.
Charlie
Tuna was on the mic.
It was Charlie Tuna. It wasn't even Jurassic 5. It was just a Charlie Tuna solo sesh.
Oh, my god, they were kind of, I believe Cut Chemist was their DJ. They were kind of primed to be the industry. Were they also on Capitol? They were on a big label, and maybe Universal, and it was like, oh, they're going to be the big stars of this generation. We're going to make them. And I think the community, who at first embraced them, realized what was happening and like, no,
So
thank you.
whoa, 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 whoa! You're trying to make barbershop quartet rap a thing? No.
Yeah, it was like Boys to Men, but rapping softly. Um, it warms my heart to know that they're still playing rooms at all, especially nice rooms. I've seen some of the best shows of my life in that bowling alley. Shout out to Captain Jazz reunions, but like, that is nice. What is the Jurassic? Oh, it sucks that you name, as a young person, you name your art project Jurassic, and then you get older.
Mm. Yeah, the Toronto Raptors dealing with that. It's like, oh, you guys are just so extinct. Do you even exist anymore as a franchise?
Can you guys evolve? What? Can you stop smoking cigarettes and not go extinct?
All right, can you Mastodon stop getting stuck in the tar pits of Ontario? But yeah, walking by there, it's like Charlie Tuna, still at it. And, but yeah, that era of rap, like the golden era, I mean, I feel like that was their entire motif. Like, this is the golden era of rap, has completely shifted. Where once it was like the golden era, Slick Rick, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim. And then it shifted to Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe DJ Premier, maybe Wu-Tang. What I'm going is, where I'm going with this, did it end there in that same way where I'm saying that post a certain date, everyone has a 3, everyone can use both hands? Did old school end? Old school, golden era. Did it end in like 2002, 2003?
I claim, especially now that we're seeing the decline of Drake finally, I think the golden era is Drake, Travis Scott, Gucci Mane. Maybe he's kind of the beginning of it. Like, that is the golden era. I mean, sort of like the King of New York. Every generation has their own version. It's kind of a shifting idea, but the golden era of rap to me in 2024 is when Drake and Travis Scott and Kanye were doing their thing.
I've seen recently, I believe this is because of maybe a Japanese artist, I forget, but someone was talking about like, well, Project Pat, like the Project Pat flow.
Incredible.
And I've been listening a lot to Project Pat over the last year.
His new album?
No, only his old stuff.
The new album is jazz. It's very nice.
I'll listen to it, but yeah,
it's great. It's great.
Listen to a ton of Project Pat just because of how influential he is in terms of his cadence. I mean, the 3-6 Mafia stuff in general, but Project Pat, even if he wasn't necessarily as good of a rapper as some of those guys, he had that knack for rhythm that is just, it does sound ageless in some ways. That would probably fall under golden era, I guess.
The 3-6 crosses many golden eras. I mean, is Project Pat old as Obi Toppin? Is he like 60 years old?
He has to be close to 50, or if not 50 plus, because they
came
were
out a long time ago.
Well, also 3-6 was making music the same time as Bone Thugs, which is insane. They had beef.
The horror stuff. Yeah.
Like they were at odds in like 1992.
Oh my God. Or that artwork. It's like, yeah, that to me, that is a certain golden age. But there can be more than one. There can be a multitude of golden ages. I mean, I always argue, maybe incorrectly, like, just because of the way things work in music, this is the best time for music that there ever has been.
I like this theory. Before we get full-fledged into basketball here, I have a question for you, Andrew, because this is sports adjacent but not hoops. What's going on with you in tennis? I'm a little worried. I saw a tweet that I retweeted only because I was trying to kind of get you in trouble. You're like, fuck tennis. This sport's awful. They should be playing hoops out there at the U.S. Open.
No.
What's happening?
And these kind of tweets delight you specifically, and shout out for the retweet. But I think the wording was, Uh, oh, it was a response to maybe the women's finals is going to be Daughters of Billionaires, which I know you love. You love class warfare, and I just responded to that, and I said tennis is trash. The U.S. Open should be a basketball tournament.
Okay, I'm going to go to the tape. Andrew's telling the truth, folks. The original tweet that he was responding to, or post on X, 4 matches away from the U.S. Open women's final being 2 American billionaire daughters, really the perfect NYC matchup. Andrew says, tennis is a trash sport. Well, hold on. I'm going to do it in Andrew voice. Tennis is a trash sport.
That's right.
The U.S. Open should be a basketball tournament. And then someone responded, who hurt you?
Did someone respond that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, who did hurt you on the tennis court, Andrew?
Well, sort of like theater kids, tennis has always been the enemy, right? Like growing up, it was just like, you don't mess with tennis. Like you either play basketball, you play soccer, or you skateboard. That's just what the Gen X vibe was when I grew up, because tennis was hard to play. The equipment was hard to get. The tennis rackets were expensive, whatever. It's hard to get court time. A lot of people who play tennis have lessons. It was just like a country club thing. So we didn't mess with golf, tennis. Hockey was impossible. How do you get skates? So people just kind of don't mess with those sports. And then tennis is having a moment, right? And our buddy Noah Johnson from GQ wrote an article. It's like, what happens when your favorite thing becomes everyone's favorite thing? Because tennis is having a moment. And I love Noah, and he's sharp as a knife, but his thing is whack. Tennis is just whack. I'm sorry. It is what it is. It's less about the class warfare thing that you love. I know it's gruel for you, but I was just talking about growing up. You don't mess with A+ students, and you don't mess with tennis.
The idea that tennis is having a moment is strange as well. And this is not some protector of basketball take here. I don't particularly care if people are into basketball or not. It's that idea of, you should like my sport. I don't really give a shit, because we are very accustomed to people that we know and like not giving a shit about basketball at all.
I'm imagining a cop in full cop uniform, just with like a jersey tightly over, like the Walkman, whatever, the guns. Hello, fellow kids. How do you do?
But look, we spend a lot of time around people who do not give a shit about basketball.
Oh, it's my entire half world. I know it's the end of hyphenates, but ooh.
Yeah. So I mean, there's no urgency to make people enjoy basketball. So I'm not just hating on tennis out of being a round ball head. The sport itself is fine, and I'm on group chats, and it makes me understand, like, oh, okay, this is what it's like when we're talking hoops and someone has no clue, because I don't know who any of these tennis players are. People are really into it. They're like, yes, I'm rooting for the Dutch guy. I'm like, Rick Smits, great. Me too. But it was never cool, and I don't know that it can be cool, because it's a sport that's for like rich kids.
I'm saying it was what it was. Like dodgeball will never be cool. Kickball will never be cool because it's a sport for annoying people. Like tennis, if I wanted to get into tennis now, I'd be like, okay, I secured a racket. I'm an adult. I can afford shoes, the Andre Agassi throwbacks, the Cookies hoops, Jalen Brunson tennis gear. I got the basketball U.S. Open logo hat. And then, oh, are we going to see it? Are we going to see it?
We're going to see it. I mean, I'm wearing it, but I'm just for some reference. I mean, we love tennis over here. We love it.
Boom. And that's our stash. They're not many around yet, but
that's the stash
anymore. That's the stash. But I would have to find court time. The Parks Department, I would have to go online, pay a fee, and then like try to triangulate like where I could go at what time, try to find someone to play with me. And then I would try to find someone who had access to a private club. I heard there's a beautiful one in Grand Central you can sign up for. Try to go to their country club, try to get some some serves in, or I could just take this basketball and just like shoot a bunch of hoops down the street.
Well, right. I mean, even if you're an adult, playing tennis regularly is an aggressive endeavor, especially if you have a regular job, because then you're competing with other people who have regular jobs for the finite amount of places to play the sport. Unlike basketball, as you said, where you can put 8 people on the court at once or just shoot around, tennis doesn't really encourage, 9 people show up and hit the ball around on the same net. Like, it doesn't work. So you're basically looking at 2, maybe 4 people for the square footage of like a $2 million apartment. Like, the math just doesn't work out for it to be played casually or economically in New York City.
And like, I want to say I don't make the rules. Like, I'm into stuff that's very cringe. I'm into sports card memorabilia again. I want to get back into comic books. Extremely cringe. Like, I know this. Fantasy sports is something I love. I can't wait for basketball season. Tennis is just one of those things. A bunch of my friends got really into tennis, and I'm like, good luck. We're all into whack things. It is what it is. Basketball is also whack.
I think tennis seems fun but look, watching it on TV, not my bag. It's okay. It's better than pickleball. I'll give you that.
Pickleball's not real. Pickleball's a psyop for tennis to make tennis seem cool. We know this.
That you exposed a couple years ago, and it's proven true that this tennis moment is purely driven by the comparisons to the AstroTurf fictional sport of pickleball.
Open your third tennis eye. That's right. God, like, who has time to go to sit next to Anna Wintour in Queens watching 2 people? Ping pong is one of my favorite things. I like the dimensions of the game. I like the drama of a tennis match for sure. And we were just in a tennis golden age with like the 4 big dogs. And tennis fans hate that the GOAT is someone the least likable of the 4, maybe 3. But I don't know. In terms of a hobby, you could do better. And that better is basketball.
Thank you for being brave enough to take on big tennis at its peak. We're in a moment where we are being pressured as a society into pretending to like tennis, and you nobly stood against it.
Yeah, I don't care about the billionaire part. I know that's what would you like to talk about that part?
I think the original tweet makes the point succinctly. Like,
Tennis.
That's the sport that it is. And, we talk a lot about basketball being a sport for Nepo babies. That's true too. And that's going to be even more true when we see, okay, look, it's Carmelo Anthony's son, top rated player in New York State.
Caitlin
which is
Clark's
actually
daughter is going to be crazy.
But it's sad that Carmelo's son is the top ranked player in New York State because he's ranked 40th. Now, that does not take into account kids who went to Oak Hill or academies in like Florida that are from New York. Like, they're not being credited with being from New York. But that said, we're not looking like a powerhouse we're supposed to be.
Who's the king of New York? I know I've teased this idea throughout the pod. I saw someone online declare Jalen Brunson as the king of New York. He got bounced by the Pacers, man.
He might be. He's close.
I mean,
he feels more like the prince, like prince of the city, like a kind of an archduke.
Because he is. It's not accolades, I guess we're talking about, right? Like, you don't have to do anything spectacular. He can just get to the second round of the NBA playoffs and be the king of New York.
I mean, it doesn't seem like enough criteria has been met to be the king of New York. Like, if you won a title, that's king. But second round, like, okay, so he did the same stuff that Joel Embiid did that we say makes him whack.
Keep it in New York. Latrell Sprewell went to the finals.
Yeah, but that's like king of the New York of yesteryear. That's the golden era. We need new king of New York.
He was never discussed as the king of New York in that era.
No, because he wasn't.
Like, is a rapper out there the king of New York?
I mean, Jay-Z, no way at this point. No,
No,
none of
streets
those
don't care.
guys.
It would have been
Because
possible.
Jay-Z was king of New York for a little while there. Biggie
sure.
invented the term, well, at least post the movie King of New York, as far as it being a cultural
Yeah, is it
signifier as
Christopher
the King
Walken?
of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it still Christopher Walken to this
I
day?
mean, but I was saying it might be Chloe Sevigny, right? Like she to me
Yeah.
checks a lot of those boxes, but Natasha Lyonne is right on her heels. Who would it be? I know who you're gonna say. It's Vincent Gallo.
Oh, Vincent Gallo, the King of Buffalo 66.
Upstate
Um,
Energy, MAGA
does Vincent
forever.
Gallo still live here? I guess he does.
I
Maybe he lives in LA. I never see him.
I never you used to see him quite a bit when Kim's Underground was a thing. You used to see Vincent Gallo shopping for VHS rentals all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if he's around anymore. What about Timothy Chalamet? Could he be King of New York?
He doesn't do enough New York things, right? He's not in a movie about New York. He's in a movie about Saudi Arabia called Dune.
Right. I've seen him at Finelli with like a Yankees
Iraq.
cap on or something, and those are like
Doesn't count.
it's like entry. That's a little entry level.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I'm a fan of his, but I just don't consider him like. Do we have an Affleck, Wahlberg, Damon situation going on here? We don't have anything close, right?
Harvey Weinstein, Woody Allen, and Russell Simmons.
Ooh, it's a doozy. Um, is there a famous Ray? Where's Ray?
Like as in the pizza place?
Yeah, does Ray exist? I never Googled this.
Are
I
they?
mean, he's not famous.
No
enough.
one's doing like the we're naming a place not Ray's anymore. Like that shtick has been over for a long time.
There's one in Brooklyn, right?
Isn't there one in Fort Greene? Is that
Yeah.
still called like not famous Ray's or whatever?
Yeah, I take the bus right in front of it. I think it's if I don't know if it's called Not Rays, but not it says Not Rays on. Yeah, I think it's called Not Rays.
Oh,
It
is
tastes
there a
like
new
Rays.
generation of people who are like, I don't get it. Why would you
Not,
call your place not Ray's?
never Rayos. That's my new tomato sauce venture.
It's not Rayo's. No, it's
Nothing
not.
like Rayos. Yeah,
Doesn't cost $7 for a pint.
yeah. I don't know. I was just curious because my grumpy ass is thinking about like this Brunson uh, glazed donuts and like he has to do a little more. Taking a pay cut was so brilliant because it makes him into a folk hero. But he's got to do something other than lose to Tyrese Halliburton, right? Halliburton danced on our grave.
I mean, to be king, to really wear that crown, he's got to do more. Right now, I feel like the throne has been abdicated.
What about Murder Mace?
He's not the king of New York. Come
I
on.
know. I'm
Be
just saying.
serious.
What about Cameron? Cameron has had like an inexplicable fourth act.
He's definitely more of a baron.
Yeah.
Like he's got a small fiefdom for sure.
Yeah. Where's
He's
Rihanna
got some
from?
serfs.
Where's Rihanna from?
She's from the islands.
Oh, that's right. She was born there, right?
Yeah. I don't think we have a king of New York right now, unless there's someone we're forgetting.
Sort of like the NBA title. It's vacant.
That's what I mean. Like, okay, I guess we can give it to, I don't know, Ice Spice because she's been a recent star, but no one really thinks that she's the king of New York in the same way that the NBA did not have a title winner in 2024.
There's people who give themselves that title, sort of like when Dwayne Wade was like, "Please call me 3" or "Please call me Flash." We're like, you're just D Wade. Like Fran Lebowitz has tried to be the king of New York for an
Right.
entire generation, a life.
Right. The Celtics are sort of like that. It's like, yes, they're a nominal champion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nominal.
I mean, is Robert De Niro the king of New York? He created an entire district for rich people. Like he invented Tribeca. A
He
lot
should
of
have some.
tennis, a
He
lot
should
of
have some
tennis,
daughters who are good at tennis. That's what I was going to say.
or great, or granddaughters who are great at tennis.
He's still having boner babies.
His dick still works. His
Yeah.
dick is working.
No,
There's proof.
it's
He's
up
just
and
had a
running.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's having boner babies all over the place. Him and Pacino both.
Dude, did you hear that Ozempic now makes boners and babies at the same time? Ozempic is like the perfect drug.
Wait, what's it doing now?
Well, it made news this week because doctors are like, it may reverse aging. And people had a field day
Fuck.
about it. Yeah, what does that mean, right? You lose weight. So is that the reverse aging thing? Is this the perfect drug? Have we found the drug with no asterisks?
Well, my thing is, if that's the case, well then shouldn't it just be available on street corners? Like walk by and instead of putting your pizza box into a container and grabbing a new copy of The Village Voice, you just get some Ozempic to pop for the walk. Like, let's have a perfect society.
But it takes a while, right? We want immediate gratification. Like you don't want to order a pizza for next week. You want a pizza there.
I just feel like make Ozempic available like the vaccine. You want some Ozempic? Go get it. We're gonna make everybody skinny and young, and like
Whoa,
you're gonna
whoa,
have boner
whoa.
babies. It'll be perfect.
We just talked about SZA. Like we don't. Do we want to run away from body positivity, which I thought was amazing? The
I'm saying for
themes, right?
pure. I'm saying for pure health reasons. That's all.
I mean, that was the question. Does it reverse aging because people lose weight and are healthier? Or does it like rejuvenate oxygen in red blood cells or recreate muscle? Like what's happening? Um, I don't know. I should have read more, but nobody seems to
No.
have a correct answer.
Yeah. No. No. I don't want you to befoul this program by doing more research.
But
What do you think of med beds? Do you know what those are?
no.
So it's apparently a
Is
thing in.
is it a new center for the Timberwolves? Dimitri
Sounds like one.
Medvedev.
Alexei Medved.
Whatever happened to Russia? Anyway, I'm sorry.
So medveds are part of a sort of right wing conspiracy, I guess you could say, like maybe QAnon adjacent. But the idea is that the government has medbeds, which are similar to that movie with Matt Damon of the BMM when he has to take his like sick daughter or whatever the fuck it is, or maybe himself. He's got to go up to this like satellite planet to heal himself. Whatever the hell that movie's
Wait,
called.
what are you talking about? Not the Martian. He gets stranded in the Martian.
No. The one where he's got to go up. He's got to like fight his way up, and he gets up there so he can put
Oh,
himself.
you mean
or
that
someone in
Chinese, that like Hong Kong movie where he like flies on clouds and stuff? Defends a tower?
I don't think we're getting any closer. No, he's like doing math equations on a chalkboard. What is that one again?
Which Matt Damon movie are you referring to?
I don't know. It's like called like Olympus or some shit, something like that. It's not even right.
Oh,
Anyway, the whole point is that they are medical beds
Mhm.
that you get into them, they close, and then you get healed. And the right wing believes, or at least members of the right wing conspiratorial fringe, believe that the government has these items that you just lay down in a med bed and it cures you of whatever ails you. And they're like, the government is keeping med beds away from us. And if Trump wins, he'll finally give us the med beds.
Wait, is this for real? Do they believe
Yeah.
in the thing like the cryogenic chamber?
I think they're kind of mixing together a lot of science fiction ideas with some other
Love it.
ones that maybe
Love it.
LeBron's treatments that have allowed him to play into his 70s.
Mhm.
But overall, yeah, they're like, Trump will finally give us the med beds.
It's like the med bed has a horizontal compartment for a pizza to slide in made out of the blood of children.
You put an empty box in, it comes out a full pizza with adrenochrome on top.
That's amazing.
And Ozempic.
I mean, these conspiracy theories are great and they're always rooted in reality. So there must be some like treatment that Joe Biden is getting, maybe that someone found out about. So it's halfway true. It's like, these people are crazy. Okay, Joe Biden sleeps in this weird thing that we call the med bed.
Joe Biden is sleeping in a coffin every night.
Yeah, he hasn't moved. He's sleeping like a baby. He hasn't moved in 4 months.
He looks so healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't move an
He doesn't
inch.
even have to talk. He doesn't have to talk or move.
It's waxy. Um, yeah, I love it. I would like to try med bed a little bit. But I feel like you cannot create sort of like the Batman movies. You cannot create these technological oddities without a very clear provenance or breadcrumb trail. Like you can't manufacture a Batmobile without somebody just on the internet being like, "All right, someone's making these weird parts in Taiwan. They're
You're
for the
saying,
Batmobile." Like who's making this med bed that is
oh,
so
right, I
secret
see.
we cannot find out who's supplying the chips for it.
Well, that's kind of a problem with the Batman movies. You're saying as a franchise, where they're like, "Wow, here's the Batmobile." I'm like, are these just parts from Dodge?
Yeah.
Like, how did you build? How did you make it fly? How does it have wings and rockets and stuff? Like, what are you using here? Where did you get this from? Oh yeah, Chrysler actually has a winged car thing that you can buy. Okay, well, why are they all going to the Wayne residence?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you have surveillance in the bat in Gotham City of every single human being's phone and stuff. Like, where's the nerd pulling all nighters drinking Jolt Cola and Andy Cap fries?
They never answered that.
No, no,
They
try to
just
keep him
they
secret.
refuse.
Yeah,
No, you're the only one keeping the science fiction movie Marvel universe honest.
that's right. Which is crazy because how do we not know anything about Trump's shooter?
Dude, you're watching The Watchers.
That's right. I'm calling bullshit on tennis, assassination attempts, and something earlier this pod that was perfect.
By the way, where have we landed on the Trump assassination attempt? Because I
I'm
have not
saying
paid that much attention. Have we landed on that was fraudulent and they just killed a guy? Have we landed on that? Like where, or that it was actually an assassination attempt and then all the conspiratorial stuff is bullshit? Where I just mean, where are we? Have we
I
alit?
sadly watched, I follow some of these comments on social media that have like thousands of responses. And if someone's just like, all right, here's 15 things that don't make sense, can they clear one of them up? And MAGA people aren't like, well, here's the answer for everyone. They're just like, well, Kamala Harris is racist. And I'm like, wait a second. There's no talking point on the right that explains simple things like how come we don't know more about the shooter? How come there was not more blood? Can we see or hear about Trump talk about it? Because he talks about everything. It's like, well, your candidate is a racist who doesn't know her own race.
Well, Tim Walz lied about killing a man. Okay, I know, but can we just get back to the whole assassination thing? I don't have any particular interest or dog in this fight. I just want to know where we've landed on this.
I think
Like,
we've
have we
went.
determined that it was fake or that it was real? Like, I guess what's the consensus here?
I think the smart thing of any public person is to not mention it, and I think the streets are saying it was fake.
Well, my
But who
mom's like, no
cares,
way,
right?
that's real.
Because
I'm like, my mom doesn't think it's real. All right.
when it happened, adults, reasonable adults I was talking to were like, that's probably not real.
That was one of the reasons I think it had such overall little impact. That most people who were like, holy shit,
Yeah.
were already in the Trump, caravan. There was a bunch of people who thought it was real and like, I wish they got him. And then there was a whole bunch of other people who were like, well, it's just no big deal because it's all fraudulent, even though they Swiss cheese this fucking guy on a roof. Oh yeah, that was all fake. It was just all theater. I'm like, but multiple people died.
Yeah.
Fake. Whatever. It was just some theater kid shit.
I mean, and then you had the self-loathing Democrats who are just like, "Oh, we're gonna lose. It's over. I'm gonna move to Canada." They're gonna be on Twitter in 4 years, regardless, wherever they may be.
Well, fortunately, we can talk about some basketball now. We've made it through.
Thank God, Jesus. I can't
All of the
expose
conspiracy
any more
theories.
psyops in this pod. I think I'm up to like
No, you
more. There's fewer hell squares than the psyops I have exposed on this pod.
you exposed Charlie Tuna like no one else has exposed Charlie Tuna.
I I had to do it, but can you expose Cheryl Swoops right now?
So Cheryl Swoops, a goat, an absolute goat, a high key goat.
What have you went back and looked at her stats? I hate to do
No,
this
are they,
right off the jump,
no,
but like
are they bad?
there's a lot of era kind of curvation going because
Hmm.
compared to what's happening now,
What are you what are you saying? You saying she's not goated?
she is one of the legends and founders of the W, but statistically, there has to be a little gymnastics to compare her to like Caitlin Clark.
Okay. Well, regardless, I haven't done the research. You clearly have not done the research. You're just you just know the facts. You just know the truth, and you're exposing it,
People
which is
have
what you do.
posted the B-ball reference side by side.
Okay, got it. Okay, no, fair enough, fair enough. Again, regional specific, no doubt. So Swoops apparently is so bothered by Caitlin Clark that they've removed her from broadcasting games
Yeah, they had
with
Nancy
Caitlin Clark.
Lieberman
Is
come on and repair that.
so is this true
What do you mean? What's true? That they replaced her?
that they're like she's too biased to actually
Yeah.
talk about her, or
Yeah.
are we inferring that we don't want someone on TV who's willing to criticize her? I'm just saying, looking at it from both sides. Was it that Swoops is unwilling to do it, or that they don't want her there because they fear that she'll be critical?
Swoops is reluctant to talk about her at all on air and then goes off air and talks about her. She wasn't helping anybody. Obviously, it doesn't help the broadcast when there's like a single issue broadcaster who is triggered by one thing, and that is the most popular or interesting and divisive subject in the game. At least you could maybe be a Angel Reese fan and constructively but subtly kind of criticize Caitlin Clark in a game. But Swoops is overcome with that Michael Jordan rage. And instead of
Is
her
her
teammates, it's Caitlin Clark.
is Swoop's objection to Caitlin Clark based on the attention she's garnered as like a white woman? Is that the crux of it?
I think that is much of it. I also think it's a bit of gatekeeping because she's been known as the GOAT for a long time. Shout out to Maya Moore, who I think is there or even better. But Swoops is one of the gods, and she does not appreciate these young rappers mumbling hits.
Here's the thing. I get it. This is part of the deal when your sport changes and becomes more popular and there's more eyeballs and there's more money and there's more advertising revenue. This is how it goes. And we've seen this in every sport, in basketball in particular. Because that's what we think and talk about most. Like that's the entire shtick of, inside the NBA, of every coach, every announcer, every personality from a different era says that the new one is pussified.
Michael
That
Jordan
the
made a
sport was
whole.
realer.
He did the Last Dance because he was threatened of LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, this is just how it works. So Caitlin Clark is getting this attention, and it's because of what she's brought to the table, but it's also because of this is how sports work. If you asked other WNBA players in the past what they thought of new talent, they probably would have been critical also. There just weren't microphones on them to have them ask what they think about Sabrina.
The culture of grievance is crucial to the survival of all these leagues. I just was interested because Cheryl Swoops couldn't adapt to making it content. It was just pure rage in the Michael Jordan way, right? Because Michael Jordan is not good at talking either, and Cheryl Swoops did exactly what Jordan does, like talk, except it was a young player and not his teammate who kind of Pippen gifted Michael Jordan a run, and Jordan can't even talk about it. And there's this kind of megalomaniacism that is a byproduct of the way you're framed. I think in history, that is unavoidable or hard to avoid, and a lot of great players do avoid it. But I can, to your point, relate to players who cannot, because Swoops has been regarded as one of the GOATs for so long. She should think of herself as a GOAT. It would be amazing if she was just like, time goes by, and shout out to this wonderful new player. I hope we can bring these generations together and give you an experience of this league like never before. I don't think she should be tasked to do that because it's not in the nature of a competitive athlete.
Yeah, everyone can't be Allen Iverson, who has this, love for
One
modern
guy.
players.
He hates
And
LeBron, right? He came out against LeBron recently.
well, he's an MJ guy.
Oh, he's a Kobe guy.
Which one? AI?
Oh, AI is a Kobe dude, right? So
Well, he was an MJ guy, then he kind of was a Kobe guy, yeah. But overall, he's always shown a lot of love and always, at least publicly, been like, oh, Kyrie can do things that I can't do or whatever. He's always been sort of
sure.
at least acknowledging that. But again, these people all have egos. And to your point, to make it to that level and excel, it's not about being realistic. Like, I became an all-time great by being realistic. No, you didn't. You weren't realistic at all. So when you sit there and say, actually, the sport was harder in my day and I'm better than all these players who have come after me because honestly, they're a bunch of bitches and I'm not. You're like, yeah, it's unrealistic that the world would work like that, but you didn't make it where you were by being a realistic, rational person. You made it by thinking that you were the total exception to the rule, and you proved it.
I mean, there's a lane for Rasheed Wallace, for Gilbert Arenas to be like, it's all bullshit except me. And then there's a lane to be on air and have the attention around your words and to like formulate an argument. I'm just surprised Cheryl Swoops, who's a GOAT player, didn't find a way to stay on a broadcast. Like, I wonder if her producers looked at her, was like, hey man, you just have to tone it down. Like, you are a part of this thing. Like, we're trying to celebrate. Criticize all you want, but like, it can't be mean spirited and you have to say something. It cannot just be silence. She's like, nope, fuck you. Not doing it.
So here's a question I have for you about Caitlin Clark. What would you say the perception is of her efficiency?
That she's inefficient, because she is efficient, but people think she's a chucker.
Right. I think the Angel Reese delegation can't say anything about her efficiency because Angel Reese is cartoonishly inefficient. Even if, as we've discussed in the show, she gets enough of her own offensive rebounds that those numbers are a little bit misleading. She's more efficient than her poor field goal percentage and poor true shooting percentage would indicate, because some of those possessions she's generating 2 attempts and scoring on one of them, which is like 50%, but it's really, in a larger sense, it's like 100% because it was on that possession, just for the sake of argument. There was a article that we both read that said that she's getting like a third of her offensive rebounds or a third of her rebounds might be off of misses. Like, it was true. And
well, the article,
at the same time,
if I could just paraphrase the article, which was fascinating and deflating, because the article was like, I am going to look at every Angel Reese rebound and every Caitlin Clark turnover, because those are the 2 things people point out as weaknesses of these 2 players, and figure out how much of it is the fault of Caitlin Clark's teammates and how much of it is Angel Reese's point of view offensively, for example, like Moses Malone. And in the end, after a pretty entertaining article, it was like, not as much as you guys think. These are weaknesses of 2 great players. They need to both shore them up, but they're awesome. Each player helps their team tremendously, but Angel Reese could afford to shoot better, and Caitlin Clark could afford to cut down some poor turnovers.
You sort of buried the lead a little bit, which was that he's like, yeah, it's true. She does turn the ball over too much, and she is a poor shooter. That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, the numbers actually, the criticisms of those athletes based on those numbers are kind of valid.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, Caitlin Clark is responsible for like 96% of her turnovers. Maybe a handful were wrongly attributed to her, but like they're all her turnovers.
Yeah.
And Angel Reese, yeah, she can't finish for shit. She has a weird like release on her layups. She's shooting from like her hip, and she is a terrible finisher around the basket, but she does get a lot of her own offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
I only meant your takeaway and what you said was correct, but he was like, yeah, that criticism is all valid. There isn't like, no, it's just not true at all. No, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, they are who. Do we even watch the games, bro? We can just see it, right? Like, I believe in the article there were less than 10 turnovers on Caitlin Clark's end that were her teammates' maybe fault that like bounced off of hands, and we see them all over and over. But those are the only ones. She is a little bit too careless. And whatever. Go on with your point. I just wanted to like the article is interesting for that reason.
No, thank you for explaining it more thoroughly. I mean, you exposed the article that we read.
So many hell squares, so many exposures.
So the point I wanted to get to with Caitlin Clark and talking about efficiency is that I agree with you. I think the perception is that because she doesn't shoot a high percentage, that she's kind of inefficient. She's a gun. Now, this treads a little bit on territory we have discussed before, but it's that the WNBA and the NBA have very different efficiency numbers as their averages, right?
Year to year, league to league, for sure.
They're different leagues. It's a slightly different sport.
The rules play into account, right?
Yeah. So Caitlin Clark's true shooting percentage, that's the easiest way to measure scoring efficiency. Includes your field goal percentage, your effective field goal percentage, and your free throw percentage. So it's just a measurement of how you score and the efficiency overall, what you do, how you put buckets up, points in the basket. So hers is at about 59%, which
good. That's good.
It's good, but it would be a bit above average in the NBA, right? That's like where Jason Tatum is, Tyrese Maxey, guys who are not known for being inefficient, but they aren't bad. They're a little above average. In the NBA, true shooting percentage, because of the way that the game has been optimized, gets you in the 57 to 58%. WNBA, 53%, 53 and a half, whatever, just to be specific. She is so far ahead of average. And if you look at the other players in the WNBA, the most efficient usage players, like top of the top, it's A'ja Wilson,
insane.
Brittany Griner, and Caitlin Clark. They are 1, 2, 3. They're in a category all by themselves.
Yeah.
All by themselves. Yeah. It's Caitlin Clark is not just efficient. She is like top. And if you look at the last 15 games or so, she's over 60% and she's top 5 in the league in scoring. Yeah. She's basically, if you look at her facilitation and her scoring and you compare to A'ja Wilson, you're kind of looking at Jokic and Embiid. Like way above everybody in terms of how they score the basketball. One of them is scoring a lot more points and one of them is facilitating a lot more. I just think that needs to be clarified about Caitlin Clark. She's not just efficient. She is top of the WNBA to go along with what she's doing as a facilitator.
I mean, I said I think I tweeted this, like there's a certain truth that is always maybe exposed in sports just by watching games and statistics. And a lot of it, is like we've been asked to compare Reese and Caitlin Clark because of their history, because of their age, the way they arrived in the league. But there's a bit of a separation. You don't hear that many people talking about which team has a better record anymore because the Fever are now, I believe in the ESPN rankings, they surpassed the Aces, which is kind of crazy because you have maybe the best WNBA player of all time in Wilson on the Aces, who's having like a Hulk esque year. It's like her statistics are just bonkers. They jump off the page, right? And but I believe Caitlin Clark is elevated to that. And I feel like there's some chatter asking, and race. Sports is about race. Asking why we're not talking about Asia Wilson more. And the small truth that is exposed is like Las Vegas is a weird city. Bigs are really hard to talk about in basketball because they don't remind us of us. They seem like anomalies because they're so tall and skilled, but we gravitate towards Kobe Bryant, whereas Shaquille O'Neal has always been the better player all time.
There's that, but there's also the fact that we aren't talking about Breanna Stewart either. We aren't talking about Sabrina. We aren't talking about anybody but Caitlin Clark and her foil,
Right.
which is,
Right.
Angel Reese. And that's just because there aren't enough fans of the game yet. That she is still the contours of the league. They still form around Caitlin Clark and her relationship with the players and her relationship with rivals and her relationship with coaches or the media or former players. It's still Caitlin Clark. And, that'll change. And that's not a commentary necessarily on her versus Asia Wilson. It's more about Caitlin Clark just being totally anomalous. And that it does have racial components to it for sure.
Yeah.
That why is she this phenomenon that we care so much about? But that goes back to college and it goes back to what she represents. If Caitlin Clark wasn't in the league, it's not as if Asia Wilson would be the superstar that people would be talking about otherwise. It's just that Caitlin Clark is this bizarre freak, not even how she plays ball, just in the amount of eyeballs that she garners.
I want to believe I'm getting this story right, but Wilson, the ball manufacturer, has signed Asia Wilson and Caitlin Clark to deals, but no one's buying the Asia Wilson ball, which is weird because it's like the perfect match for obvious reasons. And I believe the Caitlin Clark ball is very popular. Everyone's like, what the hell is this? Is this about racism? And I'm like, yeah, a little, because it always is. Like, there's no denying that. But also, Caitlin Clark is really popular, extremely popular.
Yeah, I mean, again, there is a racial element for sure, but it's not just as clear cut as like Asia versus her. One's popular because they're white, one's unpopular because they're black. It's just part of this larger swirling dynamic.
Yeah,
it's part of it. It's like indisputably part of it. But I do think what's impressed me about Caitlin Clark on her recent run, I was like, all right, let me give you these three criteria, Andrew. Three criteria. Amongst the league leaders in scoring, outlier efficient, not just efficient, outlier efficient, and amongst the league leaders in assists. Who are some NBA players who fit that criteria? Because I know, and I can tell you from the last 30 years who they are.
Wait, efficiency?
Like top of the league in scoring per game. But amongst the leaders, not like the leader, but amongst the leaders. Outlier efficient, freakishly efficient, and among the league leaders in assists, or even leading, depending on how you want to do it. Because I'm giving you the Caitlin Clark formula for those three categories.
I mean, I think of SGA recently. Ben Simmons in his best years, as all NBA years. LeBron James. I don't know. Those players come to mind.
So you weren't quite thinking, well, LeBron, yes, but you weren't thinking even big enough because SGA doesn't facilitate enough, and Ben Simmons didn't score enough. Mm-hmm. We're really talking about like maybe five guys. We're talking about Jokic, LeBron, Houston Harden, pre-knee injury CP3, and Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. If you were going to find players who are outlier efficiency is crucial in this, right? Because otherwise you get guys like a Gilbert Arenas, or you get like a Westbrook, and even a Luka who is efficient. It's a strong suit. He isn't weirdo efficient. So Caitlin Clark is doing some stuff as a rookie, especially over the last 15 games, but overall, because she's scoring more, that like is really only the territory in those three categories of the absolute greatest offensive players in history when it comes to basketball.
And
I'm not talking about rebounding or defense or other stats or even turnovers. She's got work to do. I'm just talking about those three vectors because that's a Dietrich word that I like using. She is as good as it gets in comparison to NBA guys.
And I know, and we've been doing this pod a while, I know how you feel about these players, but someone just listening to that now might be like, see, no one cares about CP3. Right. We do. I mean, he's probably, you can make an argument that he is a top 5, 6, 7, 8 all-time player. But if a Caitlin Clark head came and saw that take, they'd be like, she's better than CP3. Like the assumption is that within the context of the WNBA, she's already passed Harden, right? Like, and we love Harden. Harden's a top all-time player for us too. We are now talking about swoops territory, which is only LeBron and Michael Jordan.
Well, I don't know, because for me, as someone who knows the NBA much more, and I think about less how good she is, but more like what she's doing, right? And I think, yes, you could look at it in a WNBA context and say, well, Swoops was scoring but wasn't facilitating. She wasn't efficient. Again, you get into era-specific, the nuances of that are a little different.
Playing with plumbers. I don't know. Like you can justify.
But I'm saying this is fair. Like Swoops, you're great. You're playing with a bunch of seamstresses.
I mean, when the league came together from nothing,
they were all stewardesses playing against you.
The league, I believe, was bringing players that were past their prime just to fill rosters. Like it wasn't just college graduates.
Dude, teams were starting milkmaids.
But like, oh, we don't got to get into that New Yorker cover. We forgot that. But like, it like expansion, creating a league out of nothing. There's an adjustment period, and the players that excel in that period will remember as originals, but it's very noisy.
Yeah, the average team was like a shooting guard, 2 nannies, maybe a power forward, someone they pulled out of the stands.
I mean, nannies are teachers, and we love teachers, so that New Yorker cover controversy is whack. But anyway, yeah, I said this last week. The content that Clark is generating is just insane. It's just insane. I have not seen this in the NBA in years. Wemby is on planet Earth, and he's not generating this heat. Like Wemby's just like, oh, he's good, whatever.
Yeah, just to wrap up the Caitlin Clark part about the efficiency, it was more that I was sort of shocked because I knew that she was shooting better. Also, she shoots 33, 34% from three. League average is 33%. I'm like, oh, I got to keep going back and looking at the numbers. I'm pretty well versed in NBA numbers and the averages. You got to go back and look at how these compare to the WNBA and what they're doing as a league, because her shooting 33% on a high volume is Luka shit. Taking a ton of really hard contested threes where no one's letting you open. They're self-generated. That's what Luka's doing. He's shooting high 30s on the hardest shot diet in the league. And that's what she's doing. League average, but on impossible fucking threes with a high volume. It's a different thing. She's not just a chucker. She's creating great opportunities. And like her sort of regiment that gets her up to this efficiency is kind of interesting because to some degree, I feel like it kind of validates some of the early stuff that her coach was saying, where we sort of roasted her coach because she sounded outdated. And the reality is that she's getting back to her sort of college way of scoring, the breakdowns, which are shooting about 85, 90% from the line, making a bunch of threes and taking a zillion threes. But her 2-point percentage is how she kind of rigs it. Because her 2-point percentage is like, getting up towards like 55 to 60%. It's a high degree of 2-pointers. So Caitlin Clark I try to think of an NBA comparison for someone who creates their efficiency the same way. And it kind of comes down to, ironically, another Indiana product, which is Tyrese Halliburton. Kind of similar, that he's efficient. He has a ton of assists. He takes a zillion threes. And he has a very similar breakdown. Obviously, he doesn't turn the ball over, but he isn't as good in comparison to she is. But they're actually kind of similar archetypes.
I love basketball because I think a Angel Reese fan like Lisa Leslie might hear you say, "Oh, Caitlin Clark is so good. She reminds me of healthy Tyrese Halliburton, Chris Paul, and James Harden," and they'd be like, "See, she's a fraud. She's a fraud. Those are all losers."
Bunch of bums.
I mean,
Bunch of milkmaids.
I kind of see their point too, right? Because like it's like, oh, you guys held her in a higher regard. We were talking about goat. She's no goat. I mean, Harden's not a goat.
I mean, Caitlin Clark's archetype, it's been fun trying to figure it out, because when she got drafted, we watched her a little bit in Summer League and we talked about it, like, is she Trae Young? Is she James Harden? Is she Steve Nash? And the more I'm looking at it, I'm getting closer to she's James Harden / LeBron.
So
James
frauds,
Harden,
so fraudulent players.
just a bunch of bums, really. But yeah, I mean, James Harden, in the words of Daryl Morey in the Houston version, was the greatest offensive player of all time.
Don't bring
And
Daryl Morey into this either. Like these are the wrong. I mean, to me, I get it, but like I think to people hearing this might be like, he's losing this argument as the more he talks.
right, I mean, I don't even have an argument. I'm just saying, Caitlin Clark, her combination of scoring, wild efficiency, and leading the league in assists as a rookie, if this is a baseline for the stuff that she's going to be doing, she's an all-timer. She might be the offensive GOAT. Like,
It's not
as great as
trend.
Asia Wilson is,
Yeah.
it's just the facilitation element is a different component. And I'm not even here just to glaze Caitlin Clark. I was just shocked by the numbers. I looked at them and was honestly, Andrew, I was aghast.
Can
I
you
was
glaze another
flummoxed.
guard? Can you glaze TJ McConnell? Switch it up a little bit.
Oh, you mean the Caitlin Clark of the NBA?
Mhm.
So your boy, TJ McConnell, your man, fellow tall king, signs $4
He's
million.
probably exactly
No,
your height, right? Is he like 6'5", 6'4"?
no, I think he's like I think he's like 6'1".
He's tiny.
I think he's legitimately a little shorter than myself, unlike you, who is 6'6".
That's right.
But I believe he re-signed for a 4-year deal for about $45 million. Is he everybody's kind of like favorite player at this point?
I mean, he's a process sixer. I don't love him. I like him. He beats the Knicks, but like, he's charming. I didn't hate him when he kind of took it to New York. Diminutive players are popular. I don't know. I think like he is an interesting prototype that always exists. The Knicks drafted his prototype again. Like short white guards are around that are quote unquote smart and pass well. He's kind of a good player. He's good.
I think he's a good player. I mean, the fact that he's been able to figure out a way to score efficiently without taking threes, he can make them, but he takes very few. To score in the paint at a high clip, to get steals, get assists, valuable player. I also mean that maybe there's part of it that people will come up and like, you know who I actually like? TJ McConnell. I'm like, yeah, I know, dude. Everyone likes TJ McConnell. He's short. He's got a good personality. He plays hard. The whole cliche of you hate him when he's playing against you, but you want him on your team. Like, people don't even hate him when he plays against them.
No.
He's just an extremely likable player. Oh, the short white guy who doesn't try to hurt people, but also seems like funny.
I mean, he was Jalen Brunson in Dallas, right? like that
Pretty
short
much.
guard who will come in after the star goes down and kind of make the engine keep going and expose or reveal the other strengths of the team. Um, I mean, it's a hot dog legs ass take to be like, you know who I really like? A good player. It's like, yeah,
Let me
he's kind of
divulge
good.
something. Even though, he was really annoying when the Knicks played him, I kind of like that TJ McConnell guy. Yeah, no shit,
Yeah,
dude.
no shit. He's lovable. It's like, you know who I kind of hate? Tyrese Halliburton. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, I know, because he's super nerdy. Yeah, he's a theater kid.
like, can TJ McConnell reveal now that he has his final kind of contract, probably his long term 445? Can he reveal himself to be a certain kind of villain? That would be amazing. He functions better as a bad guy than a good guy, right? Like, can he be MAGA? Can he say something bad about Caitlin Clark? Can he? His silence about Caitlin Clark is deafening.
He also plays in Indiana, so that could be a real schism there.
Wow, wow. Um,
Yeah, now he's quite good. He just isn't. He doesn't shoot enough threes to be a starter anywhere. That's his real issue.
all
If he
right.
could
Yeah.
shoot threes, he could be a starting player. His defense is good.
What about this
He
take?
takes care of the ball.
What about this take? It's sort of like the OG Ananobi take. It's awesome until you have to pay him. And at TJ McConnell's scale, 445 kind of makes him annoying. Like he was better as a cheaper player. As soon as he gets kind of more than $10 million a year, he's not as valuable or interesting. That's just a take, I think. Like
I
OG
felt like his
Ananobi.
old I have not looked up what his old contract was. It's probably between like 5 and 7 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not this.
But those guys are valuable though. When you can get a bunch of guys, as you said, it can go either way. If you're getting Dante for 10, you're like,
Ooh, that's the
how
best
come we don't have
contract.
him locked up for 9 years? We want him for the rest of his career at $10 million. This is the dream.
Yeah, I don't.
And
I
then
don't
you're
want.
like,
Yeah.
I know I was to say, then it's like we have Kelly Oubre 2 for 18. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the point of that?
But Oubre on a veteran's minimum for a year, it's like, yes, we got him. I don't want to bleed over into other future perfect pods, but what do I smell? Rice balls? Wait, do I smell focaccia? Is San Gennaro in the air? Is it this time of year where I started getting a hunger for some sausage and peppers?
Well, we've got Art Week, Armory Week, Fashion Week. San Gennaro is close by.
Is Slam Gennaro the king of Sam Gennaro?
It's interesting that you asked this because I was thinking, in much the way that people get the government that they deserve, according to one saying. Not my take. That's a saying. That's a saying. Saying. I feel like that every generation gets the Italian that it deserves.
Oh,
Like you go back, we had Fiorello LaGuardia, leader of a city, right?
Francis Ford.
Then Francis Ford Coppola, Super Mario, Chef Boyardee, Mario Cuomo, like
Luigi.
generation by generation, you get the Italian that you deserve. And today's Italian, I mean, Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini, today's generation gets the Italians that they deserve. One is Dante DiVincenzo, and the other is the Rizzler.
All right. Is the Rizzler the adult or the kid?
The kid?
Is it the
He must
kid?
be the kid. It's got to be the kid. The dad can't be the Rizzler.
The kid can't be the Rizzler. You cannot sexualize a kid, even though it's Costco.
Oh, the kid's got to be the Rizzler. The dad can't be the Rizzler.
I'm Googling this.
What, the dad's out there rizzing people up?
I mean, it has to be the dad. Shout out to Miss Rizzler, who's probably very jealous. Who is the Rizzler? Kristen Joseph.
The kid.
I'm gonna go.
Gotta be the kid.
It's the Rizzler Instagram profile because I'm not getting a definitive answer from Google. Google.
It's gotta be the kid.
It's it's the middle kid. So it's not the short the like the 8-year-old. It's like the 11-year-old. You cannot. I don't like this Rizzler action with this kid. He's a young
Dude,
lad.
it just means he's got Riz.
Glazing is just when kids kind of zone out on their phones and like their eyes just kind of glaze over as they scroll
Dude,
through
he's
their
just
feeds.
he's just got swagger. He can just riz up the ladies.
I
He's
guess,
the Rizzler.
I mean, maybe he's rizzing all of us collectively.
Is he the Italian that his generation deserves?
Well, do we deserve him more than his little brother and his father?
Or Dante DiVincenzo?
Or Dante DiVincenzo? Or the King of New York, Robert De Niro?
Is the Rizzler the king of New York?
Where are they in New Jersey? Don't all Italians come from New Jersey? They immigrate from the West.
Yeah, they they traditionally came off the boot of New Jersey. They'd make it to Brooklyn and the working class enclaves where now they have Halloween themed neighborhoods and Christmas celebrations. And then eventually they make it to Long Island where they become Rizzlers.
Is Little Italy the only region that's shrinking? Because, like Little Paris is blowing up. You have Little Tokyo everywhere. There's multiple Little Tokyos. You have Little Halloween just like popping up in South Brooklyn. Little Italy has been shrinking for a long time, hasn't it?
I mean, this was the plot of like 90% of movies about downtown New York gangs in the past. It was always the friction between your paisanos, the Chinese, and the paisanos, Italians. Oh, you're on mute, Andrew. I know you want to say this.
Sorry, we got crying toddlers in the background. Little Italy is making a comeback, right? Because there's like money getting put into it. Now there's like better slice spots. There's instead of like the tourist traps with t-shirts that say like New York fucking city and Mama's Little Meatball, there's like food halls and things like people actually want. It's on the come up a little bit, not unlike DiVincenzo and his New York Knicks.
Can you say the big pun line?
Not accurately.
Dead in the middle of Little Italy. Little did we know we riddled the middleman who didn't do diddly.
So you rizzled the middleman? Did he predict the future? Big pun. Shout out to Big Pun. Fortune teller.
Dead in the middle of little did we know we rizzled we rizzled the Rizzler.
He kind of had a high voice. He was a big guy, but he had a higher pitch. Yeah, I don't know. Watch out. Watch this New York City space for San Gennaro coming up.
Who should be the king of San Gennaro this year? Can they get Dante over there? Because he would that would work. We need to make some calls, I think.
Would Jalen Brunson's iron fist let that happen? Jalen Brunson's not letting anyone get screen time on his watch, right? It's a wrap.
What if Josh Hart is the king of New York?
He's been spotted dining alone at Italian restaurants. So that's king behavior.
I do like that Mikal Bridges is just not part of the conversation.
We
gave up a king's ransom for him. 6 first-round picks. We've mortgaged
a bunch
the
of cannolis,
franchise.
some nougat. Watch those fillings. Definitely a bunch of sausage and peppers.
They've given it all up for him, and yet no one even thinks he's like a archbishop, an alderman of New York.
We got to get our buddy Jason Aceto on the pod soon because he just shot the Villanova 4 for GQ. Oh, he's got stories.
Are you leaking information that people don't know about yet?
No, it's on Instagram.
No, all right. Just I was hoping you were because you expose everything all the time. Oh, this is
Listen,
another quo expose. A quo's
listen quos
expose.
All right, let me rank the hell squares. Number 1, 3. Number 2, 5. Number 3,
Mm.
1. Number 4, 6. I did it.
Oh, I disagree.
Oh,
I
what's your
disagree.
ranking?
I think 7 is 2.
7 is 2? But 7's too
And
close
3
to
is
little
3
Tokyo.
is definitely and 3 is 3.
3 is 3, but 3 is technically still considered Little Brat City.
Yeah, but only in summer.
Only for 2 months out of the year. You know what?
You know what?
It's only around for 2 months out of the year.
You know what pod consistently ranks 1 out of 1?
You know what? Number
That's
1
where I
is
was
471.
Cookies?
I love cookies. I love cookies.